Chapter 2. Leaving Home. A decade had passed. Beliath, now a young man, stormed through the moon forest astride a fierce moon elk. His long raven-black hair whipped against the wind. His face was now patterned with tiny scars, badges of honor from branches that attempted to slow down his relentless pursuit of Gelivana's daily training. Just a few feet behind him was Goralamus, his feathers ruffled in pursuit, pushing himself to keep up. Beliath looked back at Goralamus with a grandiose grin and shouted, "Are you getting tired, Gora, you old bat?" "Mocking an old bird like me? I taught you much better manners than that, young man." "Manners won't help me finally catch up with Gelivana." Beliath pushed forward, laughing as he weaved through the trees. Gora decided to take a break and perch up in a nearby tree. While he waited for Beliath to tire himself out, a blur of blue and silver flashed through the air. Gelivana landed beside him with barely a sound. "You two are always playing when you should be listening. There are strangers in the forest again," Gelivana huffed. "Then I shall do what we've done 100 times before. The strangers will get lost and curiously find themselves back at the entrance, none the wiser." Beliath emerged from the trees, panting slightly. "More strangers? Are they like the ones from yesterday?" Gelivana said, "No, their intentions feel unclear to me. I would like to take a look at them myself." Her sapphire eyes blazed with a sudden light, and moments later a moon elk emerged from the trees. Beliath attempted to follow Gelivana. Even after all these years studying her every move, he was still no match for her uncanny oneness with the forest. A few more branches scratched his arms until Gelivana's pace finally slowed. Beliath cautiously approached, peering from behind one of the many massive trees. Gelivana stood watch over the clearing, her gaze fixed on two figures. A tall elf man with flowing white hair, fancy robes, a staff, and a pompous spine, and a younger elven female with less fancy attire and a shield on her back walked behind him. She clumsily carried his possessions. The elf man turned to the girl and said, "Wait here," while narrowing his eyes. "We are being watched." He put down his staff and raised his hands with caution. In a loud voice he said, "We mean no harm to you, Forest. We come as friends. My name is Alaketh, and this is Kala. We seek the boy, as I'm sure many others have. I understand that you wish to protect him. We intend to do the same. Should he wish to discover his place in the world, we could use his guidance. Please, find us at the Laughing Lich in Lostmoor. We will wait for him there." Alaketh slowly picked up his staff and began walking back towards the forest entrance. Before leaving, he turned his head and added, "A boy needs his mother." After the elves left, Gelivana turned around to find Beliath behind a bush. "I see you, child," she said in a flustered tone. She had taught him to hide much better than that. With cheeks flushing with embarrassment, Beliath stepped out from the bush. "What do they want with me?" Gelivana's face hardened. "To cause harm, just like the others of your kind." "They know my mother. They could be lying." Undeterred, Beliath peeked around the edge of the clearing, searching for any sign of the strangers. They appeared long gone. Gelivana beckoned Beliath. "Come, we return home." Beliath found himself back in his bed of reeds for yet another night of staring upward, soaking in every glimpse of the sky that he could find, which were few and far between, hiding in between the tall trees. Gelivana, while sharpening a stick, said, "I know what you are thinking, Beliath, but they are dangerous, especially the man. He is a spell wielder." "What about the girl?" Gelivana's hand tightened around the stick, the scraping growing frantic. "Something new, a troubling mix of light and dark I cannot fathom. Strange new magics are plaguing this world. with so many gods welcoming themselves to our plane. After a long pause, Beliath blurted, I want to find my mother. Gelivana slammed the stick down. She entrusted you to me for a reason. She said you would not be safe with her. I was 10 years old. I'm much more capable now. And she is my mother. Gelivana, tightening her fist, shouted, I am your mother. Gelivana took in a deep breath. She walked over to Beliath, put a hand on his heart, and said, I have raised you, nurtured you. If you leave, then danger will find its way to you, and I cannot keep you safe. Beliath nestled his head into Gelivana's warm embrace and began to cry. He looked up at her and through his tears said, I know, but I am going to leave. Gelivana released him with a heavy sigh. Then I won't let you go alone. But the forest, you can't leave. You're the heart, and you are my heart. Beliath's face softened against her words. Gelivana continued, Besides, Gora can keep watch. To no one's surprise, Gora made his presence known from one of the nearby trees. He began soaring downwards and shouted, Absolutely not, and then plopped down next to them. If the boy leaves, so shall I, Gora insisted with utmost certainty, while giving Gelivana a serious glare. Gelivana let out yet another sigh. Very well, we go at dawn. Beliath looked around. But who will take care of the forest? Gora replied, These lazy trees, of course. A nearby tree then creaked and groaned. At dawn, the three companions stepped out beyond the edge of the forest and looked eastward. The air was heavy with a silence, broken only by the mournful cry of a distant bird. The dusty plains where the battle had taken place years ago was all but empty. The nearby village abandoned. Nothing but skeletal remains strewn across scarred battlefields. Where is Lostmore anyway? Beliath pressed. I will find out, Gelivana declared. Her eyes began to glow, and then Gora's eyes glowed in response. He took to the air, flying eastward into the distance. A few minutes later, he swooped back. Some jittery human babbled about Lostmore being northeast from here, Gora grumbled. Can't imagine why he was so terrified of a wise and magnificent creature such as myself. Very well. Stay ahead of us and warn us of any humans, Gelivana instructed. Beliath stepped eagerly. He could barely contain his excitement to see the outside world again. At times, an involuntary smile would emerge, and Gelivana would say, Stop that, only for his smile to reappear moments later. Gora noticed the pattern, but for once decided not to intervene. In the late afternoon, Gora descended from the sky in a grandiose swirl after another scouting task and reported, The town is up ahead. Just a single questioner at the gate. Let me handle the speaking, Gelivana warned. As they inched closer, Lostmore appeared to be an up-and-coming village with deep wells and high walls, high enough to keep out most creatures of true earth. An intimidatingly large spiral symbol was carved into each of the town's entry doors and painted with a swirl of orange and teal. Beliath asked, That symbol, do you recognize it? Gelivana replied, Many a stranger in the forest bore that symbol on their robes. They whispered of a god of dreams. What could dream worshippers possibly want to go to war over? Why don't they just take a nice long sleep? Gora remarked. Mysterious as ever, Gelivana replied, Some of them do. Gelivana pulled her hood over her head and approached the questioner at the front gate, with Beliath a few steps behind, and Gora scouting the town overhead. Afternoon, ma'am. State your business. We are meeting with fellow travelers at the Laughing Lich. The questioner, scared to admit feeling intimidated by Gelivana's presence, said, Well, yes, of course, right this way, ma'am, and allowed them entry. The sun began to set as Beliath followed Gelivana into Lostmore. Beliath couldn't help but stare at every passerby. It had been so long since he had seen another human up close like this. Staring would quickly be returned in kind for anyone keen enough to notice Gelivana's teal skin underneath her hood. Humans were especially cautious during war times. Beliath tugged on Gelivana's cloak and said, "There." A dusty sign hung over a tavern door with a symbol of a skeletal figure with a crooked, gaping jaw. "That must be it." "Not so loud, boy. Step quietly." Inside of the tavern, it appeared the villagers of Lostmoor had already finished their day's work. A merry jig had just begun, spreading from table to table, most likely originating from the dwarven bard, who was on stage wearing a festive coat of purple and yellow, strumming a lute and singing. "Peace approacheth when no one's minding over the sun, so forget the time of day until you've won. Ease your souls while braver folks fight for your dreams, then show kind welcome when the fighters all come back in streams." Townsfolk clapped and sang along with the repeating verse, drowning out thoughts of war with their mugs in tow. Beliath was bedazzled by the music, as if locked in a trance. The joyful spirit of the room found its way into every bone in his body. He couldn't help but clap along. Gelivana pulled Beliath and said, "Come, we have an elf to find." Walking past each table, any worries Beliath had about journeying outside of the forest were washed away in song and sight. If humans could be so merry like this, why all the war? He thought. And then he saw them. Tucked away in a shadowy corner sat Alaketh and Kala, their faces riddled with concern. As they approached the table, Kala got up and said, "Oh wow, I didn't think you'd really come." Alaketh thought otherwise, but I'll be honest, I had some serious doubts. Alaketh spoke in a confident tone. "Enough, Kala. Make room for our guests." Kala moved to sit next to Alaketh, making room for Gelivana and Beliath to sit across. Alaketh kept his appearance subtle under a brown cloak, but his staff was difficult to hide. A shiny red gem glimmered at the tip of it. Beliath was eager to start. "I'm Beliath. This is Gelivana." In a faint whisper, Alaketh replied, "I'm sorry to meet under these circumstances. I don't know what you've told the boy, but these are dangerous times. This was simply the closest town to your lands, but we would do well to leave here immediately. The dreamers have never stopped looking for him." Before Gelivana could reply, Beliath jumped to speak again. "Where's my mother? And what does everyone want with me?" Alaketh looked to Gelivana for guidance, but in absence of any expression, he replied, "What all humans seek. Power. If you haven't felt it any day now, I'm sure it will awaken within you. As for your mother, well, she is safe at the moment." Gelivana replied, "Tell us what you need so we can go home." Beliath began to notice Kala staring back at him with curious emerald eyes. Her auburn hair was beautifully tamed into a long single braid that fell beside her neck. Alaketh carried on. "It's not that simple. The war between dreamers and dawn keepers has been raging for years. Most think it a simple war, just to conquer in the name of their gods. But I believe it to be something else." Gelivana inched closer with curiosity. "What, then?" "A shallow contest between the gods themselves, and a cruel one at that. Think on it. They descend into our reality, give us all of these gifts in the name of humanity, only for us to kill each other over them? I think not. What we need now is a new party in this conflict, to rise up and challenge these damned..." Gelivana sternly interrupted. "I've heard enough. We are going." Rising from her chair, she snatched Beliath's arm to follow. Alaketh beckoned. "Now hold on, you'll make a seat." Before he could finish his sentence, a drunkard reeking of ale bumped into Gelivana and leered. "What's this then?" Gelivana's eyes scanned the room for the nearest exit. Her grip on Beliath tightened as she propelled him towards it. The drunkard yelled in a voice that boomed over everything, "Oi, wait!" The entire tavern suddenly came to a halt. Gelivana stood still with her back to the man. Beliath hesitantly turned around to find the drunkard making his way towards them with mismatched steps. Beliath stepped forth, pulled down his hood, and said, "Look, I'm human. Leave us alone." The man pushed past Beliath and said, "You ain't leaving until I see what's under her hood." Murmurs began to spread. Meanwhile, Alaketh whispered to Kala, "This isn't good. I think someone just left to tell the god. Follow me." The townsfolk slowly began joining the drunkard's clamor, demanding to see Gelivana's face. They started shouting and throwing things. Kala stealthily followed Alaketh underneath the commotion to exit the tavern. The drunkard raised his mug as an improvised weapon and said, "I'll ask you one more time, freak." Gelivana had reached her limit with these pesky humans. She spun her staff and dropped the treacherous man to the floor in one fluid motion. The tavern died down again. Gelivana suddenly realized that her hood had escaped to reveal her teal skin and animalistic features to everyone in the tavern. From the cold, wet floor, the drunkard asked, "What the hell are yous? You from the Moon Forest or something?" While the villagers were shocked at the revelation, Gelivana stole the moment to pull Beliath and make for the exit. "We are leaving this place, now." Beliath was happy to leave the hectic scene, but a part of him was disappointed to be leaving so soon. Bursting from the tavern door, Gelivana nearly collided with 2 town guards clad in bronze armor, blocking their path. Gelivana bristled. "We have done nothing wrong. Let us leave." One of the guards stepped forward. "Not until we know who you are." Gelivana gripped her staff, preparing to strike. Before she could act, a surprising character exited the tavern. It was the dwarven bard, swaying slightly. He looked ready to travel, with a large pack and gilded lute strapped to his back. A hiccup escaped through his auburn beard, followed by a deep, hearty voice. "Surely we can settle this matter with a bit of coin, lads." The guards exchanged wary glances until the dwarf started taking out hefty, coin-filled pouches from his bag. With a flourish, he tossed a pouch to each guard. The guards quickly conceded. "All right, get out of here, all 3 of you." Beliath, still bewildered by the turn of events, turned to the dwarf. "Thank you, kind sir. Who are you?" The dwarf replied, "You're welcome, lad, and I'm no sir. Name's Bestie, and we'd best be on our way if you still want to get out of here. Come on now, follow me." They hurried towards the town gate. Beliath stole one more glance of the town. His heart hammered in his chest. The very same guards who took Bestie's coins now seemed to be reporting something to their captain. More and more guards started gathering around them. Bestie, ever observant, asked, "You wouldn't happen to have 3 horses, would you?" Gelivana replied in earnest, "We have an owl." Bestie sighed dramatically. As the party exited through the town gate, he remarked, "If we make it to that tree line over there, we might have a chance." Gelivana's eyes glowed with a dangerous shimmer. "Or we return them all to Gaia's embrace." Bestie glanced over at Beliath for assurance, with none to be found, and so he had no choice but to carry on. "Right then. Personally, I'd much rather get out of here." They followed Bestie's instinct and began walking towards the tree line. Halfway there, a roar of outrage echoed behind them. "There they are! After them!" They looked back to find 6 of Lostmore's soldiers galloping on horseback, closing the distance with alarming speed. In response, Bestie cursed under his breath. "Now we run." The chase was on. The horses neighed in wild excitement, accelerating the soldiers forward. "This isn't good," Bestie exclaimed. Just as despair closed in on them, Gora bolted out of the sky and torpedoed towards one of the mounted soldiers. He dug his sharp talons and snatched the soldier off of his horse before tossing him in the dirt. Bestie, watching the action unfold with a grin, shouted, "Suppose the owl did come in handy." The remaining soldiers surged forward, cutting off their escape just before the tree line. One shouted, "Grab the boy!" 2 soldiers charged forward on their horses, snatching Beliath by the arms, and began hauling him north in a flurry of dust. Their apparent captain barked again. "Take him to Mesmia, and don't stop!" Gelivana screeched to a halt, a primal roar erupting from her throat as she whirled around. "Beliath!" The name tore from her lips with a fury that sent shivers down Bestie's spine. Gora, ever vigilant, shouted from the sky, "I'll follow them!" Gelivana wanted nothing more than to follow suit, but her path was now blocked by a line of soldiers, dismounting their horses. She ripped off her hood. Her eyes glowed with fury. Bestie stood confidently behind Gelivana and brandished a couple more coin-filled pouches, juggling them with surprising dexterity in one hand. With an unexpected loyalty, he declared, "I'm right behind you." The soldiers cautiously advanced, with sharp bronze swords. Gelivana readied her staff and then raised it above her head. A flurry of feathers erupted from the tree line behind her. Birds of all shapes and sizes swarmed the soldiers. Gelivana charged in alongside them. Her staff was a blur, striking in and out of the blinding cloud of avian allies. Bestie, watching this ensue, noticed one of the soldiers breaking free from the swarm. He launched a pouch of coins. It connected with the soldier's forehead with a ching noise, dropping him like a fly. He sauntered over to the unconscious man, recollected his self-awarded bounty, and then began digging for any more gold he could find. Gelivana swiftly defeated the remaining soldiers. She stepped over their unconscious bodies and turned to Bestie without a moment's rest. "Where are they taking him? What is Mesmia?" Bestie, still shoving coins in his pockets, gave a disheartening reply. "A bad place to be a prisoner. It's their biggest stronghold. The dreamers, that is." Gelivana's eyes narrowed. "My owl will find it. Thank you for your help, dwarf." The birds scattered back into the trees, and in their place a grand stag emerged. Gelivana swung onto its back. "Hold on now. Can't I come with you?" Bestie scrambled. Gelivana raised an eyebrow. "Why do you want to help, dwarf?" "Well, let's see. Fame, glory, adventure. You'd make quite the subject for my next verse." "Your songs? This is a serious matter." "No, I know. I mean, I can handle the bribes." Gelivana looked unconvinced. "Look, I know I'm a stranger, but I've been going from tavern to tavern singing for coin with no purpose of my own. No tales to tell my future family. At this rate, nobody will ever sing about me. So let me try. Let me see if I can help rescue your boy." Gelivana pondered for a moment before caving in and summoning another stag for Bestie. "Tell me more about this Mesmia on the way, and do not slow me down." "You won't regret this." Bestie examined the stag and added, "Now let's see, can she hold my weight?"